Welcome to Deep Roots, Open Skies, a podcast dedicated to exploring the defining moments that shape our lives. I'm your host, Lykesia. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to Deep Roots, Open Skies. I'm your host, Lykesia, and today we're discussing a topic that's as spicy as a Gen Z TikTok dance challenge, our beloved generations. So let's talk about something that's been on my mind lately. Millennials and Gen Z, you owe a huge thank you to us Gen X folks. Yes, we're the ones who paved the way for you to express yourselves, speak your truth, and let's be honest, maybe even overshare a little. But hey, it's all good. Now, before you get all defensive, let me explain. Generation X is generally cited as the years 1965 to 1980. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, we experienced a unique blend of cultural and social changes that shaped our outlook on life. We were the children of the baby boomers, raised during a time when traditional family structures were being challenged and societal norms were shifting. While our parents were often focused on their careers and personal ambitions, we were left to navigate our own paths, leading to a sense of independence that defined us. We were taught to keep things to ourselves. You know the classic, don't air your dirty laundry mentality. This was especially true in communities of color, where the expectation was to maintain face and project strength even when things were tough. Many of us grew up in households where emotions were often seen as weakness. Instead of discussing our feelings, we learned to suppress them, resulting in a generation that often felt isolated in their struggles. Our coping skills? Well, they mostly involved screaming into a pillow and hoping for the best. We didn't have the luxury of open conversations about mental health like you do today. Instead, we turned to music, whether it was blasting Prince or listening to the gritty realism of Public Enemy to express what we couldn't say out loud. We had our favorite teen dramas like maybe My So-Called Life, where we watch characters grapple with their own feelings, giving us a sense of camaraderie, even if we couldn't articulate our own experiences. We also had a different relationship with technology. The rise of home computers and early mobile phones was all new to us. We were the ones who first learned to navigate these tools, often alone, figuring things out through trial and error. Even if we used the family TV, our family, even though they bought these things for us, would say, don't put that on the TV, it would break it. You see, we didn't have the internet to turn to for answers or support. Instead, we relied on friends or the occasional visit to the library. And let's not forget about the cultural events that shaped our youth, like the rise of hip-hop, the influence of punk rock, and the societal upheaval of the civil rights movement. These movements inspired us, but they also left us groveling also with questions about identity and belonging. We saw the world changing around us, and yet our conversations about those changes often stayed behind closed doors. So through it all, while we may have appeared tough and resilient on the outside, many of us were quietly struggling. This tension between wanting to express ourselves and feeling the need to hold back created a generation that became masters of adaptation, often at the cost of our emotional well-being. Now that I'm thinking about it, we were the generation that dealt with shows like Living Single and Family Matters. Now, those were iconic. Watching Khadijah, Sinclair, and the crew navigate life in New York City was like getting a front row seat to friendship goals and entrepreneurial spirit. And who could forget Family Matters? Watching the Winslow family deal with everyday life and the chaos that Steve Urkel brought with a hilarious reminder of family dynamics and the importance of sticking together. Both of these shows tackled crucial issues, relationships, self-identity, and cultural pride, often with a healthy dose of humor. But while we laughed with them, many of us were still dealing with our own feelings in silence. We'll see Khadijah passionately pursuing her dreams, or Laura Winslow standing up for herself, and think, wow, they're just like me, except they can talk about their feelings without a second thought. And let's be real. How many of us felt that awkwardness of wanting to express ourselves, but ending up channeling our inner Urkel, wondering how to say, I feel, without sounding overly dramatic? The irony is that while we were glued to the TV, absorbing all the lessons about love, friendship, and the occasional misadventure, we hadn't quite figured out how to apply that emotional intelligence in our own lives. We'll tell our kids, talk about your feelings, while we were still stuck in our heads, trying to figure out how to say, I feel hurt, without feeling like we were breaking down. And what's wild is that these shows were revolutionary in their own right. They not only entertain us, but also started conversations about mental health, love, and identity that many of us were too scared to have. Shows like Living Single weren't just about dating and friendships. They were about navigating life as a Black person in America, dealing with societal pressures, and figuring out how to own our narrative. So yes, we might have been the keepers of secrets, but we also laid the groundwork for your generation to be the vocal, unapologetic activists you are today. And trust me, we're cheering you on from the sidelines, even if we're still trying to find the right words to express our own feelings. Now let's take a moment to talk about the characteristics of our generation. Gen X, we are the hardworking folks, often misunderstood as the quiet generation. We were the latchkey kids, learning independence at a young age. We spent our days outside until the street lights came on, drinking water straight from the garden hose. And let's be honest, we had uncles who might have let us taste beer way before we were ready for it. We were the pioneers who first familiarized ourselves with computer. You know that. Remember the thrill of getting our first flip phone? It was like a rite of passage. But with all this progress, many of us are also carrying our own burdens. We're tough, resilient, and resourcefulness, but we're also a generation that's been broken in many ways. You see, we faced economic downturns, shifting job markets, and a society that often overlook us. And while we may not have had a president from our generation yet, that doesn't diminish our impact. We've seen a lot, and we're still here, navigating the complexities of adulthood while trying to instill values in the generations that follows us. So fast forward to today, and we got Millennials and Gen Z strutting around like they own the place, shouting, I need therapy, and let's talk about my trauma. And listen, I'm here for it. But I can't help but think, who taught you all that? Oh, right, we did. We might have been the generation that had to learn how to be ourselves, but we also encourage you to speak for yourselves. It's like we passed the baton in this crazy race of emotional discovery. And let's talk about the generational differences. Millennials, you guys had social media, which was like a megaphone for your feelings. Meanwhile, we had the occasional handwritten note passed in class. And yes, I still cringe at the thought of my crush reading, "Do you like me? Check yes or no." But hey, it worked. And here's where it gets really interesting. The youth vote has become a powerful force in the political landscape. And it's thanks to you, the millennials. You played a crucial role in electing the first Black president, Barack Obama. Your energy at the polls brought conversations about representation and activism to the forefront. It was a moment in history that showed just how impactful the younger generation can be when they come together to make their voices heard. You did that. And if that wasn't enough, let's talk about diversity. Millennials are the most racially and ethnically diverse adult generation in the nation's history. You've embraced and celebrated differences in a way that has reshaped conversations around identity and inclusion. Unfortunately, those in my generation were scared to come out, and that goes for entertainers too. But hold on to your hats, because Generation Z is even more diverse. Together, you are not just changing the narrative, you're rewriting the whole script. But as much as I love you, Millennials and Gen Z, let's address the elephant in the room. Sometimes when you guys get a little too vocal, we're sitting here thinking, who you talking to, Willis? Seriously, though, I know a lot of my Gen X friends are still trying to figure out how to express their feelings without sounding like they're having a midlife crisis. And here comes a millennial saying, I'm just going to express my feelings and share my trauma on TikTok. And I'm like, that's great, but can you at least teach me how to do the dance first? I'm just saying. We were taught to be resilient, to show strength, and to keep our heads up, thank you, Pac, even when the world was weighing us down. The unspoken rule was to not burden others with our problems, so we bottled it all up like it was some kind of emotional soda can. But here's the beauty of it. This podcast is my platform to be open and honest with you all, to share my life, and to compare notes on what's happening in our lives. It's like a family reunion, but without the awkward small talk about how long it's been since we just have seen each other. So to all my Gen X listeners out there, let's take a moment to appreciate the fact that we're still learning how to voice our feelings. We've navigated a lot, cultural shifts, economic ups and downs, and the advent of technology that changed the way we communicate. We've been the unsung heroes, often working behind the scenes to create spaces for our families to thrive, whether that meant grinding in our careers or being the supportive parents who cheered on our kids' dreams. And let's not overlook the talent and achievements that came from our generation, that is. We were the ones who embraced creativity, explored new frontiers, and carved out paths in industries that were often not welcoming. Many of us pursued higher education, broke barriers in the workplace, and cultivated talents that would inspire the next generation. Think about it. We were the pioneers of the tech revolution, the ones who first embraced computers and the internet. We were the artists, musicians, and innovators who shaped the cultural landscape of the 80s and 90s. We raised children who became the millennials and some Gen Z individuals who are not just bold, but also driven and passionate about making a difference in the world. We instilled in a sense of resilience. We put this in you, a belief that hard work pays off, and the importance of standing up for what you believe in. We taught you to dream big and to pursue your passions, even if it meant stepping outside of traditional paths. Many of you have become leaders in social justice, environmental activism, and technology, carrying forward the torch of change that we lit. You've taken the lessons we learned through struggle and triumph and turned them into a movement for progress. And to the millennials and Gen Z, thank you for being bold, for breaking the stigma, and for reminding us that it's okay to cry, scream, and even dance like nobody's watching. Your ability to express yourselves freely and advocate for mental health is something we cherish. You're shaping a world where emotional honesty is valued, where vulnerability is seen as strength, and where everyone can find a voice. As we reflect on this journey, it's clear that our generations are interconnected. The value we instilled in you have blossomed into the activism and awareness we see today. You're not just echoing our lessons. You're amplifying them and pushing for even greater change. The conversations about race, gender, and mental health that you're having today weren't as easily embraced in our time, but you've bravely taken the lead. Remember, it's all about growth, understanding, and maybe even a little bit of laughter along the way. We've come together as a society to learn from one another, bridging the gaps that once kept us apart. So let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts, your experiences, and let's make this a safe place for everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Roots, Open Skies. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your friends, especially those who still think it's not okay to talk about their feelings. Until next time, keep those roots deep and the skies open. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Deep Roots, Open Skies. Until next time, embrace your journey and keep exploring the possibilities.